Welcome back to the channel today, guys. Now, we had kind of a different type feeling episode today of Danmachi than we have. With all the despair and gloom and doom recently, things are starting to look up and be positive. And we actually had like a lot of little intimate moments throughout the episode today that you would think would be more so throughout the season with the circumstances, but they haven't been. And it's a very welcome reprise. Things are looking up and are positive. But I also feel like this is the calm before the storm. I 100% feel that way. Things are looking too good right now. And judging by how the episode ends today, I'm not the only one that feels that way. But enough of that. Let's get straight into it and talk about Danmachi, Season 4, Part 2, Episode 6 today. Still a mouthful to say. Now, I know I said that our episode today was pretty positive, and it is, but it starts with an argument as we hear, "Take it back, Kaguya." And it's here as we see that we're in one of Ryu's flashbacks again. We hear Kaguya say, "I'm sorry, Leon, but I simply don't see a problem with what I just said." She sounds like a Karen on Twitter. Now, these two have always butted heads with each other and butted ideals against each other. They're kind of the opposites in how they view things. I had to clarify that because the topic they're talking about is kind of interesting, as Ryu says. So you're saying the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Is that the kind of justice Lady Estrella wants? And after hearing that, Kaguya just tells her flat out, "You are stupid." As she tells Ryu, "You're so unbelievably naive, it makes me want to throw up." Lady Estrella is an inspiration to me. I love and respect her very much. But turning her idea of justice into a reality? That's a different story. As she says, "Don't make the mistake of thinking we have the power to save everyone." And Ryu makes a good counter-argument as she says, "What's the point of peace if we sacrifice people to obtain it?" But it's here Kaguya gets a little real with her as she says, "Alright, Leon, you're strong. You're strong enough to call my arch-rival, even. But mentally and emotionally, you're the weakest in our familia." And as Ryu tries to grab her and she stops her, she tells her, "Strong and capable warriors. How many do you think we've lost in the fight against evilists? And innocent citizens, how much of their blood has been shed? You say you want to save everyone? Well, you can't, dumbass. The justice you like to prattle on about is nothing more than a convenient ideal. You know, there comes a time in everyone's life when we're forced to make a choice. And that includes me and you. Perhaps you ought to try opening your eyes and seeing things for what they really are." Now, I decided to include this scene for a couple reasons. One, I think it's an interesting topic that we could potentially talk about. But the other reason I did, and the more important reason, is the fact that I wanted to showcase to you guys that Bell and Ryu are extremely similar with each other. They are. I believe this is the reason why Ryu has taken such an interest in Bell. If you go back to their first meeting, she took an interest in him almost immediately. And the reason why is because they're so similar, and she probably sees herself, her old self, in him. And I just wanted to kind of showcase that to you guys, because they are extremely similar people when you go down to their core beliefs. Ryu's definitely become more jaded now over the years, but at her core, her and Bell are the same. But it's here we actually transition to Bell and Ryu, as we see they're still making their trip together, but they're having a tough time. They're getting overrun by monsters at this point, and are getting overwhelmed. As Bell asks her, "Alright, what are we gonna do now?" As she says, "I guess we don't have a choice but to use this," as she takes out a bomb. And as she throws it at them and Bell hits it with a fireball, we see all the monsters blow up. They cleared the area. As Ryu says, "An item stolen from Jura's men actually saved our lives." How is that for irony? And it's here as everything calms down, Bell thinks to himself, "Alright, Ryu wants to avoid battle whenever possible, but the monsters just keep on coming." And it's here Ryu tells him, alright Bell, just give me a second. I gotta update our map. You look out for monsters. And while she's doing that, Belle's like, you know how to make a map, huh? She says, basic ones, yeah. A far cry from anything a professional thief or cartographer could make. And while all this is happening, we see that Bell just can't get rid of his negative thoughts right here in this situation, as he says, man, it's always Ryu keeping me safe, never the other way around. I'm so weak. And it's here as he's mentally tearing himself down, Ryu tells him, Bell, you're wasting too much energy in battle. You need a more efficient approach. And Bell actually starts breaking down a little bit as he says, I know you're right, but I can't do it. I can't keep going at this rate. The monsters are too strong and too fast. The more I panic, the more mistakes I make. And it's for scenes like this that made me want to include the first part of the episode, because Ryu sees this, and she understands it completely as she says, Bell, you're still nothing like most adventurers. You're doing a great job. It's completely normal to get flustered and make mistakes during your first trip into the deep floors. Any other adventurer would be yelling at me for making unreasonable demands. You're being way too hard on yourself. That's why you're different from other adventurers. As she tells him, in fact, if you had a little more confidence, you could be even stronger than you already are. As we see, she hesitates for a second, but she takes Bell's hand and says, pay close attention to the enemy's movements. Study them. Monsters in the deep floors are intelligent. They'll employ more sophisticated tactics than any of the monsters you've encountered up till now. As she says, your right arm tends to get a bit shaky when you're nervous. As she says, let me do some of the heavy lifting from the back as well. Because for now, we're a party. Don't forget what I just told you. I know you can do it. And seeing this scene, I gotta say, these two make a really great team together. They complement each other very well. And I kind of really like seeing them, I'll be honest, I do. It's grown on me a lot. I really hope nothing happens to one of them. But it's time to get into the more nitty-gritty details, as Ryu asks him, Bell, are you familiar with the 37th floor's layout? As she says, if I remember correctly, the floor is made up of circular walls called the Great Rings. And it's divided into 5 different areas. The tunnel leading down to the 38th floor is located at the heart of the innermost area. The tunnel leading up to the 36th floor is in the outermost area. Be sure to remember that. And it's here as we see them continue their travels from here and slowly creep their way to the path. They see a monster on the wall as Ryu tells Bell, the monster we just saw was called a Paluda. They infect their prey with a toxic substance. If I had to guess, the adventurers in that room probably died as a result of a Paluda's poison quills. As Bell asks her, are there any other monsters I should be on the lookout for? As she tells Bell a Spartoy. They're extremely skilled at hand-to-hand combat. As Bell tells her, alright, I'll be sure to remember those and look out for them. And it's here all of a sudden as they're walking, we just see Rimuru basically show up out of nowhere. How wild! As Ryu says, that's an ooze. They secrete acidic toxins from their mucous membranes. They vary based on color, but the blue variety is potable, meaning edible. As we see that Ryu actually starts cooking it, and this is so nasty. I don't know, man. As she's just like, alright, Bell, time to drink up. And Bell obviously don't want to do it. I wouldn't. But as Bell does end up taking a sip, he's just like, oh gods, it's disgusting. As he hands it to Ryu and says, alright, you gotta brace yourself. This shit's nasty. And I'm sorry for putting my mouth on the flask. As Ryu suddenly stops hearing that. And actually puts it away, and Bell's like, no fair, you have to drink it too. If I have to drink it, you do. And the reason she doesn't drink it is the fact that she's actually embarrassed about what Bell just said. It's actually a little bit adorable, I have to admit. And it really is quite an adorable scene, I gotta be honest. Like I said, we got a little bit of intimate moments sprinkled here and there throughout this episode, and I actually found it kind of cute. That's why I wanted to include it. That's the only reason, really. Not even that important of a scene. And as they continue on their journey, we actually see they make it to one of the rings on the floor she talks about earlier as she says, I'm sure of it. This is the third ring. As she says, there are 5 rings in total, but each of the rings have a slightly different hue to them. Only the third ring, located halfway into the floor, is chalk white, like the one next to them. As Bell realizes what she's saying and she says, yes, we're on the innermost side of the third ring. So now that we know which area we're in, we can figure out which direction will lead us to the outer exit. As Bell says to himself, we're actually making progress. We're getting somewhere. We're going to survive, and then we'll make it back to the surface together. Bell has certainly turned his feelings around and is in high spirits now. But it's here we actually transition to Team Hestia now, as we see that they finally make it to the 27th floor, but are immediately attacked by monsters. Now our boy Welf, with his brand new sword, is putting in work. As Daphne says, is it just me, or is that sword getting stronger as time goes on? As Boris says, he's been blasting monsters left and right, and it still ain't broken. That's some mind-blowing power right there. But it's here we see that our boy Welf, yes, he has a very strong weapon, but he himself is not indestructible, and he's starting to get worn down. And as we see Team Hestia continue on their way, they finally come across the carnage of the Juggernaut. As Boris tells them, that ugly beast made quick work of these guys. And it is gruesome. As Welf says, damn, Bell fought a monster that did all this, huh? And it's here Lily says, Boris, I'd like you to take us to the area where you last saw Bell. But it's here as they're leaving that area, something kind of wild happens. Because all of a sudden, Aisha just hears, please, don't go that way. And as she looks around, there's no one there. Now, I'm going to assume this is Mari that called out to them. But I can't be too sure. I don't know 100%, but I'm going to assume like 95% that was Mari trying to warn them that if you go this way, you're going to run into hell. And it's here as they make their way to the place where Bell fought the Juggernaut, they realize that the place is deserted. As Boris says, I watched my men die. How can their corpses just up and vanish? What the hell is going on? As Lily says, alright, there's got to be a clue somewhere, so let's look around and check. And it's here as they're looking around, Lily finds the giant hole in the room. As Welf says, damn, that's a big hole. But Lily thinks to herself, like, wait a minute. If the Lambton did this, then Bell might be down there. As Welf says, wait a minute. You're saying he might be down further than we thought he was? As Lily says, I don't have definitive proof of that, but the one thing I do know is that Bell isn't here, so let's keep going. But as she's saying that, they get interrupted by the appearance of more monsters, and Aisha looks shook as she says, a Voltamira. And we see Boris gets heated here as he says, so you're the bastards that ate my men. And as they start fighting, Aisha warns everyone that these things have an insane amount of durability. Do not try to challenge them head on. And the situation turns even more grim as even more show up and they realize that they're trapped. As Lily shouts, is there another exit? And Aisha says, no, that tunnel they're blocking is our only way forward. And it's here as we see they're fighting desperately, they're starting to get overwhelmed. As Lily says, damn it, every second we're stuck here is a waste of time. And it's here as we see Welf actually take a knee. Aisha's like, shit, he's reached his limit. And it's here somehow the situation gets even worse as we see even more monsters coming from behind them now. So now they're boxed in. And as Cassandra says, is this the end of the line right here? She actually gets attacked by one of the monsters and her and Haruhime get knocked out. And right when we think Cassandra is going to get cut down by a monster right here, something wild happens. The other monsters that were coming towards them actually starts fighting the other monsters. They're fighting each other. As Lily realizes, wait, it's the Xenos. As we see the harpy Xenos named Fears say, hello again, my surface-dwelling friends. We kind of just saved your ass. As Lily asks, how'd you know we were here? And she says, Fells told us. Thank goodness we made it in time. As Let tells them, we made Mr. Bell a promise. The next time you and your friends are in trouble, we'll come running to your rescue. And we did just that. And with this, I would say that Team Hestia is pretty safe right now for the time being. But it's here as we transition back to Bell and Ryu. She realizes full well that this can't last. This is not going to be positive forever, as she says, how much can I help Bell grow before I disappear? Expecting to sacrifice myself right off the bat is a terrible plan, but I need to be prepared for the worst. And it's here she says something that I've been thinking as well, as she says, something tells me the deep floors won't be kind enough to let us both escape with our lives. And eventually, the time will come when a sacrifice has to be made. As she says, even now, Bell is chasing after his ideal outcome, a future where he and I survive. As she thinks, did I used to go chasing after ideals with that same heartfelt look in my eyes all those years ago? And as she remembers the words that Kaguya told her years ago, she says, you should be happy, Kaguya. It looks like I'm on your side now. And with that, our episode ends. And I do really like this, that Ryu has really become jaded over the years, but again, her and Bell are so similar. She sees herself in him. That's why she can't help but try to help him in all this time. Be a mentor to him, if you will. And just seeing him the way he is now is really drudging back all these memories of her. Some painful, some not. But they really are similar with each other. And I think this episode really showcased that a pretty good amount. That at their core, they are the same. And I really enjoyed this episode. It was pretty different, actually, and I definitely structured the video a little differently than I normally would. So you guys let me know what you thought of the episode and the video down below. I'd love to hear it. But yeah, guys, like, things are going pretty positive right now, and that makes me think that something really bad is going to happen soon. Unfortunately. So we'll have to wait and see when that happens. But until next time, guys, I hope you have a great day, week, month, and year. And until then, deuces and have a blessed day. I will see you guys next time.